Hi, I'm Carmen, and this is the Miscellaneous Vegan, where I share a little R&R recipes and reviews. And today we're going to be making this jerk chickpea, but we're going to make it without coconut milk and onions because I did get a question on my channel, and I was curious about how it would turn out. So let's get into it. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you like and subscribe for recipes and reviews in New York City and around the world, and for Coaching Mondays. So these are the ingredients you will need. Of course, you're going to need your garbanzo beans, and instead of using the coconut milk, we're going to be using almond milk, but you can use any plant-based milk. That is the leftover tomato sauce that I had from the previous recipe. I am adding Dominican oregano to give it a nice flavor. I'm always using this pepper, turmeric. This is garlic that I freeze. Yes, I normally get this from my coworker at work, and some salt, but remember I'm salting it at the end. So someone did request to know how I open up my can of chickpeas, and I'm quickly going to show you. This is not the safest way to open your can of chickpeas. I highly recommend that you use a can opener, but this is how my mom opened her cans. We didn't grow up with a can opener, and this is how I learned, and I just find it to be quicker and simpler, and this one less item I have in my kitchen. But again, be safe, get yourself a can opener if you're not a professional. So I do rinse out my chickpeas. I leave it in the can, I pour out the excess water. You can always save the aquafaba, that's the liquid that's in the can, for other recipes, but I'm not planning to make any baked goods soon, so I just toss it out and rinse out my chickpeas. So you want to set the heat to medium low and add your oil, and of course I always use avocado oil. If you haven't seen the unboxing and review of these pans, again I will link that video below. And once it's hot, I'm adding my garlic. I'm not adding any onions to this recipe again because of the request, and I just want to see how it turns out, if it has any flavor, because the onions give it a nice flavor and so does the coconut milk. So I was very intrigued to see how it would turn out. So I am adding extra garlic. You can just estimate how many cloves of garlic I'm using there. It might be 6 or 7 minced garlics, but I am not sure. So the reason I'm using the lid is so that, prevent from making too much mess of the splash, the oil and the garlic. But here I'm just gonna saute it for a few seconds, and then I'm just adding my chickpeas right away. The reason I'm adding it so quickly is because I'm not using the coconut milk, and I want it to get more of the seasons that I'm going to be adding to this pan. So it's basically the same recipe from the previous video from last week, but without the coconut milk or the onion. So you're going to saute it for a little bit, to a few seconds, and then we're going to add our next ingredients. So the next spice that I'll be adding is the black peppercorn, and about maybe, I am not even certain, maybe 20 turns, but it's up to you. You decide how much you want to add, but I like to add a lot because it does give it a nice flavor. The next ingredient is the Dominican oregano. So if you don't have this particular oregano, you can use whatever oregano you have, and I use about a half a tablespoon of oregano. So I measured out 1 cup of almond milk. You can use whatever vegan milk you prefer, but I prefer coconut, but I wanted to see how it would turn out with this. So I'm adding the rest of the tomato sauce that I had from the previous recipe, just adding all of it. And then I'm going to be adding some more seasoning to this because I know that it's going to need some more help to give it some more flavor because we didn't add the coconut milk. So I'm just stirring everything, mixing everything together, and then we're going to add our next spice. And our next spice is the jerk seasoning, mild. I did use about a tablespoon of the jerk spice. And I don't think I added any more. I'm not sure, but we shall see as we continue this recipe. So I just stirred it in and let it saute for a few seconds. At this point, I'm going to taste it, and I know that I need to add something else to this recipe, so I'm looking for the spice that I'm going to add, and the next spice is turmeric. Turmeric gives it a nice flavor. I like the flavor of turmeric. I don't like to add too much because when you add too much turmeric, it's just, you taste the turmeric, but just a little bit, and it did bring this recipe to a next level. So I continued to stir for a few seconds and then I tasted it. And when I tasted it at this point, I decided to just let it simmer for a few minutes so that all the spices can just marinate. Because I didn't want to add any more seasoning. I didn't want to add any salt because the jerk seasoning already comes with salt. So I didn't want it to become too salty. So I just decided to just let it keep simmering until it reduces a little. As you see here, I'm putting the lid so that I can reduce even more. And at this point, I did taste the chickpeas, and I feel like it reduced enough for me. It didn't thicken up as much as it would if I would have used coconut milk, but I was fine with it because I was going to be serving this with quinoa. You can serve it with rice if you choose to. But I said, you know what? I think this is done. I feel like it was just perfect the way it is. And here you have it, guys. The jerk chickpeas without coconut milk or onions, for those of you who do not like coconut milk or onions. And it turned out pretty well. And I served it with quinoa, and everyone loved it. So here you are. So always remember, guys, be real, not perfect. Bye.